Good day. In this day, I'm going to talk about why it's a better idea than most of you realize to memorize your Tell Me About Yourself. And maybe for a little bit of context, around 5 years ago, it was, only freshers memorized their interview answers. But nowadays, I believe there's more benefit due to some shifts in expectations and in how interviewing works. Okay, specifically, the first reason why you should seriously consider memorizing your Tell Me About Yourself would be that interviewers do work on impressions. Okay, especially in the screening rounds, telephone screening rounds, they are very much impression based, right? Nothing new so far. What is new is that nowadays more and more interviews, final interviews, are only 30 minutes. So if they cut the time short from 1 hour to 30 minutes, that basically means that's also, slightly more likely to be impression based. Whereas if you make a strong first impression with your memorized elevator pitch, chances are you'll do better than other candidates, right? Now, if you're wondering, okay, then, but what if it's going to sound as memorized? Well, that's very much up to you. At the end of the day, how well you want to memorize it, because many people can memorize it and speak it out as if they did not memorize it. So it's a matter of evolution here, right? The second reason that many of you would not be aware of, that it could be a good idea that you memorize your elevator pitch, is for AI enthusiasts. So basically candidates who prefer to prepare their job interviews using AI. And basically it would go the following way. You would prepare an elevator pitch, you would ask AI to reward your elevator pitch, and then you would try to memorize that AI rewarded answer. And what happens is the moment you try to speak it out loud, to speak it in a live session, so to speak in a role play or even record yourself, you realize that it doesn't sound as you think it would. Okay, so you would basically revert back to your own version of Tell Me About Yourself, and therefore, help you to improve your performance during job interviews, because AI rewarded answers don't really work. Right, so AI rewarded answers would be the second reason. Okay, the third reason why someone would seriously consider this approach would be because it saves you time. Okay, so what happens here is that some candidates have a tendency to overspend time on their elevator pitch. Basically, once you get the feeling of what's the best combination of technical and non-technical expertise that you want to share in your elevator pitch, once you get the format, a structure that you like, then it's going to be a very enjoyable process when compared to preparing, tell me about the time when you failed. Okay, so instead of overspending time on, preparing 6 examples of your Tell Me About Yourself tailored to each and every interviewer, you might be better off memorizing one version or even 2 slightly modified versions and then move on, because it's a time-bound process, right? It doesn't take you as long. It takes you 1 hour at most to memorize an elevator pitch, and then you can move on. Okay, so you could also save time this way. Okay, now the next reason why I believe it's a good idea that you consider this approach is, in my experience, most candidates don't have great elevator pitches, and what happens, many of you would either go to a training program to arrive to a great elevator pitch, either ask someone to reward it for you, so either use an interview coach and stuff like that. And what happens is that, most candidates lack commercialism with these things. So what happens if you spend that time to arrive to a version that you're proud of, you think, hey, this is a good one, maybe you paid money to get it done, then it would be a pity not to communicate it this way, to communicate it in a professional way during a job interview. That is to provide a memorized version of your elevator pitch, right? So it's a good investment, so to speak, right? Now, what some other reasons why you should consider this approach would be, it gives you less anxiety, because this is one of the first interview questions after the small talk. So maybe if you do a great delivery in your Tell Me About Yourself, then you'd be less anxious also throughout your interview. Another reason could be that you don't ramble this way. Okay, so if you start on a non-rambling answer, the chances are you're going to be perceived as someone who's going to do less rambling than usual in these job interviews, right? And last but not least, you will make it easier for your interviewer to understand your background the way you want them to. Okay, so you would ultimately make your interviewer's life easier, which is, something that many candidates underestimate. Some candidates have a tendency to be in their own world, to communicate answers as they think they would sound good to them, when in fact, if you have a professionally made elevator pitch, you will communicate in your interviewer's language and to your advantage, right? So this could be something else that would be interesting for you. So long story short, I believe you should seriously consider memorizing your Tell Me About Yourself, and regardless of the role you're applying for. I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.